Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Well, hello, and welcome back to the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and I have a very special guest with me today. His name is Daniel John, and he goes by DJ for short. And Dan, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I am well, thanks, Joe. How about yourself? Thanks
I am fantastic. Better than I've been in a long time.
There's a buddy with me, too. He had to say hi.
Awesome. Little cat there. Awesome.
He's
So
always curious.
I've known Dan for a little over 15 years, and we met while I was in the middle of my battle with the government and being a cannabis activist and advocate and all those many years. And a lot of listeners don't even know that chapter of my life, but it's all out there. And we had a mutual friend who was supporting me while I was going through my trial. And she put together this event where we were doing all these workshops, and I've got this botanical garden, and she thought, well, we'll have this great event. And Dan came down from, I think you were up in Oregon, and stayed in my guest house for a day or two and taught a workshop there, and that's how we met. And we've just been friends. Easy to be friends with you. So welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, and likewise. I feel the same way. It's clicked nice. So,
you are a cannabis breeder, and you are one of the OGs, if you will. And for anybody who knows the cannabis world, that immortal strain blueberry. This is the guy that came up with it and all of its offspring, and we sort of got to know each other with that in common, but we always talked about other things. We always talked about life. We always talked about the journey that we're on and deeper things than just this plant that was so amazing and wonderful. And at the time, I believed it was the most safest thing in the world. It turns out life isn't always what you think it is. And before we get started, there's a book that I came in contact with fairly recently by a guy named John Kuhn. And it's called The Structure of Scientific Revolution. Are you familiar with it?
Oh, yeah. I've got a copy here.
Awesome. So we're speaking from some common ground. And one of the premises of this is that we go through life thinking things are a certain way, and there are constants that we count on. And science progresses along and it builds on itself. And then every once in a while, there's a paradigm shift. And everything we thought was one thing turned out it was something else. And everything has to change. But life doesn't work that way. It's very difficult for that to happen. And even though discoveries are made and things are proven, by the time it hits mainstream, it's 15, 20 years down the road, maybe, if ever. Mm-hmm. And we live in that world right now with science and medicine and the understandings of things, especially things like cancer. And it's a crazy experience that I've had to learn the hard way to turn my experience into the real paradigm, which is truth. And that's always been my quest. There's facts and science and all this, but there's also truth. And I've always thought maybe we can find some of these truths. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I mean, science is a work in progress.
Yes.
Right? What should be the rarest thing in science is conclusion.
Right.
It's because there are always new variables, new ways to look at things. I mean, just the human body.
Right.
It's up to now. I follow this research now where it's 38 trillion cells.
Right.
Okay, 38 trillion cells. What can go wrong?
Right. Exactly.
I mean, it's a miracle. The body in and of itself is a miracle.
Right.
I think also as far as accepting and respecting science, you have to understand its limitations.
Right.
And there are, a lot of things that we sort of intuitively know that we can't prove through some scientific method yet.
Right.
Right. Shamanism, sorcery, the various things that the ancient people knew, and what the ancient people knew, that was science too.
Yes.
All right, it's just different than this proscribed way that we chose to go about it. You have to also understand our society and the limitations in there, and that's like huge. I mean, the way we're conditioned, the things we are, expected to accept, and that I couldn't,
Right.
and I think that for me anyhow, how people like, how do you come up with the blueberry and those types of things, and I have all these other pat answers, but I think that it boils down to not being distracted.
Yeah. Big
Right.
time.
And
Huge.
it's the 38 trillion cells. That's their mission. They're supposed to fool us into thinking that this is it, right? Which, it's a big part, but it's not it.
Yeah.
And like broader picture, stepping off just a little bit here is this, how do I put it? The one thing that is 100% certain in the future, there's only one thing that's 100% certain in the future, and that's death.
Right.
Right. And so accept that.
Right. Exactly.
And it's just as much of a cause for celebration as being born.
Yeah.
But us that are left behind, we miss who goes on. And
Right.
so that it kind of adds to the distraction a bit. But when you get to that point, especially with death, where you come to accept it, oh man, so many distractions just, oh, well, that's not important.
Huge.
Yeah, that's the basis of sorcery.
Yes.
Right? I mean, it's just that ability to pay attention. Our attention is the most powerful, valuable thing we own. And where we put it in these companies, the social media and what they know this. Your clicks have a value.
Yes.
Everything you look at, all the time we spend has a value, and it goes, beyond the material.
Right.
So I thought that it was had enough of a shovel full of.
No, that's beautiful. Recently, I had an experience where I was probably as close to death as I've ever been. And I was able to direct more attention to this thing than I ever have before. And I experienced some things that I've never experienced before. I walked in the quantum world in a way that I didn't know was possible without assistance. And I can't, and as I'm getting to the other side of this, I'm watching the distractions weaken that, make it more difficult to go back. But I know it's there. And I always struggled to meditate. It was always this difficulty. And I could spend an hour in a sauna and box breathing and doing all the things and finally get a moment, or a glimpse. And I'm like, really? Is that what I'm made of? But I tell you what, you get faced with the darkness coming at you and you have to make some decisions. All of a sudden, all your attention can go to that place and you can decide wisely or the way you really want to. And wow, there's like you said, that's where literally anything is possible in that place.
And as far as the darkness, that whole thing, there's a great saying by Buddhists that I employ a lot, of mantra: everything is as it should be.
Yes.
And so I cannot judge, good, evil, that whole 9 yard. I don't know. My honest answer is, well, I don't know. I have an opinion about how certain things should be, but conclusion. I can't come to a conclusion about what's right, what's wrong.
What I have come to discover in this journey I've been on recently, and I only with the things that I've applied it to, obviously, but everything I've applied it to seems to have this element that everything cuts both ways. It seems that there really aren't, in my experience, anything that you could say is unequivocally one thing or another, because there always seems to be a way that, well, but it could, or if you did it this way, and they're always, it's just everything. I mean, from oxygen to water to anything less necessary. it can cut both ways.
Yeah, and then the cutting both ways is still in terms of a duality.
Right.
So the singularity aspect of it, and this is it's weird. I've carried this message for a long time, and I've tried to tell these stories. I'll attempt here again. I'm just kind of ahead of my time.
Yep.
And so basically what I find myself to be in my meditation, and for whatever reasons, I mean, I've had a very odd life. I've been in a constant state of meditation since I was a very small child.
Nice.
And so it's a little different for me, but back to the point here, what's left of me when my body is no more and it passes, in my deep meditations, what I found, and the deepest journeys, this is the Buddhist quest, is to find a point of singularity. It's a point of perception. A point of perception that all of these 38 trillion cells are interacting and sending sensory information back to. It's kind of organized. I like, you look at the chakras.
Right.
Each chakra is kind of another point of perception. So, point of perception, and then what goes hand in hand with that is center of gravity. If we're talking about a material realm and a point in a material realm, then there's a center of gravity.
Right.
And there's a little, I use my own body to kind of emphasize this a little bit. Well, point of perception, and realistically, I'm made up of an infinite number of points of perception. So let's take the tip of my finger, index finger on my left hand. All right. It has, I know that that's the tip of my finger on my left hand. Okay.
Right.
And it has its identity. Now, depending on where you lob it off, there's really an infinite number. It's a fluid center of gravity in there, but that center of gravity is related to that perception that tip of my finger on the left index, whatever. So then we move on from that to the whole finger. Same thing, but the center of gravity now is different. So is the perception. Now this is my whole finger. Right? It's different. The tip is part of it, but this is now something else. We move on to now my hands, and same with all of these, depending on if they got lobbed off.
Sure.
Where the center of gravity is fluid and relatively infinite. In brain fart city, so we're back on. So okay, then we go on to my arm. Same thing, center of gravity, perception that this is my arm, the whole thing. Onto my body. Okay, now my whole body has this perceptual made up of all of these various parts. But here's the important dig: the center of gravity in my body is directly related and connected to the center of gravity of planet Earth. And the center of gravity of planet Earth is directly and immediately connected to the center of gravity of the sun.
Sure.
And the center of the sun, center of gravity and its point of perception, whatever, is directly connected to the center of the galaxy. So given that little spiel, there's a direct connection. This is immediate. It's not speed of light. It doesn't take time. There's a direct connection between the tip of the finger, my index finger on my left hand, and the center of the galaxy.
Right.
And
it's powerful.
My terminologies lately used to be mostly Castaneda. I like just the terminology that he utilized, which a lot of this is coming from. But now lately, that's now being dovetailed with Rick and Morty.
All right.
Because again, this concept of timelines, it's real. There are infinite timelines in a finite space, right in front of me, going on and on and on and on. Another great book. Yes, I have a copy right here. This one I recommend. Kuhn was great. He kind of set the stage for it. But if you're familiar with this one,
okay. I haven't read it, but I know of it.
And this just breaks it down. The butterfly effect, where that came from, was a guy named Lawrence studying the weather back in 1962, had to transcribe his data, which went out to 9 decimal places. All right. He wanted to save time, so he chopped it down to 6 decimal places, which turned out the model didn't run.
Oh, no.
A little bit of difference, and that's where he then came up. We're talking about 9 decimal places
Right.
in terms of temperature, humidity. So 70.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 decimal places chopped down to 6, and that very tiny little difference. He said, "Well, that's the subtlety of a butterfly.
Wow.
Wings in Brazil can invariably affect the weather in New York City 6 months down the road." So there are these subtle connections of everything.
Right.
And this book is so, it's in 1987.
Wow. I'm going to have to get a copy of that and read it.
Yeah, and they're cheap. They're out there, look in
Sure.
library sales. I pick them up and I pass them out all over the place because it's
I
so
love it.
significant.
Yeah.
It's I always just, the one picture that we all know, the Mandelbrot set, boom.
Yeah.
And how they go down and they magnified and they were looking,
Right.
to get, because again, here's that problem in science that, oh, well, we need a line. There's got to be an end to small. Well, according to this chaos theory, when we went down, we're talking subatomic here. What do you get?
Right. Just keeps going.
Yeah. So the term of self-similarity, and that's what the cosmos is made up of on the micro scale, is little bits and pieces of itself.
Right.
So, and this is, for me anyhow, I'm ready to die. Who cares? Once you know this stuff,
Right.
it's.
No, I couldn't agree more. When I came to that place where I had to reckon with it, I said, okay, well, if this is what I need to do, this is what I need to do. And I said, I think I have more to do, but I was okay. And it was peaceful, and it was powerful, and I was never afraid to die. I've come close a bunch of times, but this was creeping on me in a slow and methodical way, and there wasn't like every other time was like something happened, and you're like, whoa, that was close. But that
You were forced to face your distractions.
Yes.
And come to terms with them and realize these are temporary.
Yeah.
This is not a permanence. This is not who I am. This is a ride I'm taking. Rick and Morty, I brought them up, how familiar you are. There's an arcade game he takes Morty to play called Roy.
Okay.
The headset on Morty, and Morty becomes this child, Roy.
All right.
And lives his whole life. He's a high school football champion, goes to war, comes back, gets married, working in a carpet store before he finally dies. And that's the end of the video game. God, what? And, to point out the distraction that there's in. So I use that as a reference point to say, okay, somewhere I'm in a Chits and Blitz playing DJ.
Right.
But who am I?
Right.
And when we go deep into that, I have to turn off the distractions.
Yeah.
Thing that is DJ to get to that point. So
see, there is a place though where that consciousness exists. There is a place where we have that ability to be aware, or to make a decision, or to say a word, or think a thought,
do an action.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that those are the things that, again, I don't begin to understand how it all works. It's okay. When people start getting philosophical on me, I'm like, well, I am just way too small for that. I'm just going to go ahead and experience what I can and leave it at that. But there is that place where we exist as.
I wouldn't call it a place, because a place is putting a noun to it.
All right, there's the
point of perception.
There you go. All right, I like that.
Understand geometry and the definition of a point. And a point requires no width, breadth, or depth.
Okay.
Meaning it can exist in a state of nothing, but it has
a single dimension.
Well, but it has properties. According to the laws of geometry, once you define a point, there is a potential for an infinite number of lines to run through that point.
Okay.
And each one of those lines can have an infinite segment of points along it. And in between any two given points on any one of those infinite lines is a potential for infinite points.
Right.
simply by defining a point and coming to that place, I have at my disposal the equivalent of infinity cubed, which
Right.
is what is necessary to create this matrix.
Right. I like it. I like it. That's
And,
some big
and
stuff.
one step further to get, one of the biggest distractions we have is this whole the theism that people have gotten trapped into,
Sure.
concepts of God and spirit.
Right. Put names on things and personalities and all this fun stuff.
But for me, very, very simple, very, very simple. Both God, whatever that is, the creative force, and me, my spiritual self or point of perception, we're not nouns, we're verbs.
Yeah.
Verb.
Like
The word being is a verb.
Yes.
So I use this noun to do God's work.
Right.
Then you're now what happens is
I like that.
that as soon as we as human beings turn that deity into a noun,
Yeah.
it's not. It's
Right. It stops being what we say it is.
Yeah, it could be evil. It could be the demons, the devil. But I don't judge. Because
Right.
let's play the story out, right? Where'd the devil come from?
Right.
God created the devil.
Sure.
Why? That being doesn't make mistakes.
Right.
So here's the devil's in charge of death and the dirty work.
Right. It's got its job.
What to do. But it's not evil. What's evil is human beings.
Right.
We do things that make the devil cringe.
Yeah.
We are the evil ones through our what actions we do, or we can be very good, beneficent, Christ-like and compassionate and empathy, and
have it all at our fingertips.
And that's our choice.
Yes, exactly. That's where it all comes down. It's wild. I didn't know where our discussion was going to go to. I love that it's going to this place because I love this place. And a lot of people I can talk this way with, so it's great.
Yeah. Same for me. I'm glad because again, this is sort of my dharma.
Yeah.
Every time I try and do this, it doesn't pan out as planned. People have their distractions. They take this information. It kind of sends them off on a.
It glaze off or give you the crazy look pretty quick.
Yeah. But I plant the seeds.
That's it. That's what this is all about. That's exactly why I operate on this platform, because it's out there, and at any given time, anybody in the world can access it, and who knows what'll happen.
So I'm curious, where are you at now? I talked to Liz yesterday. What an angel.
Yeah.
So you had
another common thread we have.
Squamish cell carcinoma.
Yeah. So 2 years ago or so, I noticed I had this lump on my neck. What you're looking at now is what it was about a year and a half ago. Mm-hmm. It started to grow, and I'm very strong in the head, and I believe that I can heal myself, and I know that my body knows what to do. So I set my body to go solve this, and it missed the mark, and it kept growing. And at one point, I'm like, all right, this isn't getting any smaller. I need to go look at it. I hadn't been into a doctor in 20 years, but I'm like, well, I need to go have somebody look at this and see what the heck's going on. Well, prior to that, my dad passed away about 8 years ago, and I had the awakening that I was going to become him. He was overweight, he had diabetes, heart disease, all preventable problems. And I was heading down that road. I subsequently lost 50 pounds, changed the way I live and ate, and began a journey to health. And so I'm strong. I'm in my best shape I've been in many, many years, but I got this lump sticking on my neck, and it wasn't huge. Again, it was a little bigger than it is now, but not to what it became. I go to the doctor, and he goes, you got a lump on your neck. I says, yes, I do. And he says, but looking at you and your basic blood work, he goes, man, you're so healthy. He goes, it's probably not cancer because of how healthy you are. If something that size was on your neck and it was cancer, it would be choking you out, and you wouldn't be able to eat, and you'd be losing weight and all this stuff. So I'm like, oh, okay. So in my mind, I'm like, I'll still deal with it. and eventually I'll get it cut out. But I didn't have any good insurance, and I had to go and get all that solved and get some insurance. And so eventually, about 9 months later, I come back. It wasn't getting any better, and I'm still doing, fasting and diet and exercise and doing all the right stuff that's supposed to fix all the problems. And it wasn't fixing the problems. And I get a CT scan, and it comes back. Well, at first I had an ultrasound, and it came back that it was a solid mass, not it wasn't a cyst. And he said, well, it's probably a fatty tumor of some sort. It's probably nothing to worry about, but it's gross, and you should probably get it taken out. I'm like, fair enough. And so I get a CT scan 9 months later, and it comes back possible squamous cell carcinoma. And I'm like, oh shit, I don't like the sound of that, even possible. So I go back to him, and he says, look, you should get a biopsy. And of course, my paradigm says, don't get a biopsy because it's going to spread. And my paradigm said, well, I'm going to start on my cannabis oil because I know that solves all the cancer problems. So I've been making oil for 20 years. I started dosing myself, building up to my dose, and it's not getting any better. And so finally, I did research on the biopsy, and I discovered that really the only way they're going to really know what it is for sure is to take a piece of it and look at it. Mm-hmm. And so I go to this other guy, and he says, well, there's three kinds of biopsies. You can get a teeny little prick, and it may find what you need, but you may need to get another one. Or you can get a bigger prick, or I can open that thing up and take a piece out. I says, you know what? Take the piece out. If you're going to do it, do it. That was the good news, I think. It gave me what I need, especially for the future. 2 weeks later, and this is now October 14th, I get a call. He says, you have squamous cell carcinoma, and it's very aggressive, and you need to get moving. And he referred me to a doctor. Turned out my insurance didn't cover there. They send me over to UCI. I began this doctor journey. And again, I'm still taking my oil. I figured I'm going to give it a good solid 3 months, evaluate. I was already on a no sugar, no carbs, ketogenic diet. I was, again, fighting weight, very strong. Mm-hmm. I go see the surgeon first. And he says, well, this thing's, and then meanwhile, it's getting bigger. It's about the size of a half an orange sticking out of my neck at this point. And he says, the surgeon goes, well, it's really too big to operate. It's wrapping around your carotid artery, and there's no way an operation can get it all out. And if I leave anything behind, it's going to spread. And so he says, what I'm going to recommend is radiation and chemo, and then we'll do a surgery when it gets smaller. I says, all right, I'll consider that. Right at this point right now, I'm doing the supplements, sour sop tea. I'm doing all the things. You know me. This is now my job, and so I'm researching. I'm reading PubMed articles. I'm going down every rabbit hole, and I'm trying things one at a time. Just like I'm growing a plant. I didn't do 10 things at a time. I tried one thing, gave it some time. Do I feel a difference? And I'm relying on my intuition at this point. I'm starting to become more and more in touch with my own body because I had to. And so I'm starting to acknowledge and understand what this thing is. And the problem with cancer is it's you. And that's very problematic for me because I'm a son of a bitch. And I'm very smart, and I'm very strong, and I'm very strong-willed, and I'm very cunning. And I've gotten out of a lot of jams in my life. And I said, wow, I'm up against a very formidable foe here. And I came to recognize that it's not even necessarily a foe. It's just very confused. And it got lost, and it doesn't really know what it is or what it's doing. And it's just doing what it knows. Yep. And so I stopped being angry at it. And I said, well, we're just going to unconfuse you. And so in this time, so I'm gonna take a step back. About 8 years ago, I began to sit with peyote, and I connected with some roadmen from the Northern Cheyenne tribe, got a teepee, been doing that for a while. COVID came along, and the two roadmen I work with died of COVID, or one died of COVID, one died of something else. I'm sort of without, the ability to connect with this medicine, and it's been very good medicine for me. And right around the time of this diagnosis, we had planned, me and this guy who does mushroom stuff, an event at my property, and we called it the Holistic Health Symposium. And I thought, well, this is where we're going to build my community. I'm going to get all these different people, these practitioners, different plant medicines, and we're going to get together and we'll do an event. And through this event, I met this team of medicine people, Salvador and Florena. And Florena's a Navajo, amazing, amazing woman. She's a big part of my life now. And connected through this event. Turns out she also runs ceremonies. She does a total different thing. So the Northern Cheyenne Arapaho tradition is very strict, almost like the Catholic Mass. Very, very, you do it this way, you sing these songs, you drum this way. It's very, very precise and strict. And she does a whole different thing. It's out in the open, and it's very festive and yet very powerful. So I met her. She came out to do a podcast episode and just see the property. And she ended up bringing Salvador. Next thing you know, she's there till 9 o'clock at night, shared a meal with my wife and I. We became connected just like that. It was just one of those things. Yeah, it happens every once in a great while. I subsequently experienced combo, and she served me combo for the first time, and that's frog medicine. And combo is a purgative medicine that you get little burns on your arm, and then they put the frog poison on. And this stuff is amazing. It goes through your body and scans you and finds what needs to go.
Yeah, Hamilton did, I recall, a piece on that.
Yeah, powerful, powerful. So after that, she did some energy work on me, literally cracked me open. I mean, I start getting weepy just even thinking about that. Crazy, but I became aware that I hadn't acknowledged my love for myself in that moment. And I realized, wow, I fucked up. I am okay. And so these massive breakthroughs are happening in a just a breakneck speed. Quickly after I did combo, within a couple of days, I realized I need to get rid of so many things. And I started getting rid of things and including people, relationships that I was propping up that just didn't serve. And my business, I had an office and a warehouse.
1 sec, let me get this.
Yeah, no, go ahead. It's all good.
Prison. I just want to let them know I'm doing this.
Yeah. It's all good.
Because when
There'll be a place, we'll break the line. We'll cut this in 2 pieces. This will be perfect.
All right, let me get him on here. He'll call me back later.
Yeah. No, this is perfect. I'm actually going to stop the recording and then I'll start it again, and we'll make this a second piece.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, it's going. What's going on with you?
This has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. We produce this show so that people can share their stories, people that have overcome obstacles, people that are undergoing obstacles. We're building a community of health-minded individuals. If you're interested in supporting the show, please leave a review on the platform you're listening to it on. If you're interested in becoming a guest, please send an email to itsjoegrumbine@gmail.com, or you can send a note into the notes section of the podcast. All right, well, thank you for supporting this show, and we hope you've enjoyed it.